So there's this idea that there's a doghouse, right? People spend most of their lives in this doghouse, and they decorate the doghouse, and they defend the doghouse, and they let everybody know about their doghouse. And sometimes, they make a very elaborate version of their doghouse, and they are determined to, no matter what, ensure the safety of this doghouse, the preservation of this doghouse. What they don't realize is there's a majestic celestial mansion, a mansion just right over here. It's just right over here. But here's the doghouse. There's the mansion. Here's the doghouse. And the doghouse has to do with this set of ideas and views and ways of existing that we're inside of, that we think are so spectacular. The most ornate doghouse is still a doghouse, but we don't know it when we're in it. I went to Korea. I inadvertently met a woman who printed books and opened the book she was printing of mine and said, I know it's moved out there. There is something that I know that I have seen about women, and that is that there is this notion that the best we can get is this doghouse. The best we can get is the position of property or being owned and all of the ensuing expressions that come with being one who lives in that house, in the doghouse, when you're a pet. This idea that that's the best we can get. We never make that journey to the mansion where there's self-possession, where there's sovereignty, where the rules are, as my friend Jim says, upside down. See, because the rules as we know them exist to protect you as a pet. If you leave the doghouse, if you get kicked out of the doghouse, you lose all the rights and privileges of one who lives there, the protection, the refuge, the sanctuary. And all of a sudden you're out in the world naked. That sounds terrifying to most of us, right? We have this idea that women aren't resilient or strong enough to make it on their own outside of that. And so we end up some level of abandoning what we know, that deep-seated perfection of who we are. I once did an interview, and this woman said to me, if you wanted people to know one thing about women, about your experience with women, what would it be? I said, there has never been a woman I've talked to who, after a period of time when I talked to her, did not say to me, there is a power within me that I know that I don't know how to express in the world, but I know I have that power. And I would say, that power exists over here in this mansion. And yet, the thing that women are saved from is that journey. Women's sexuality practice is so intense, and people would need to be prepared for sexuality practice. Do you know where that comes from? It's not safe. It's not safe for who? For what? How? How is this unsafe in any way? I don't understand. I think it might be unsafe for the status quo. I think what might happen is that if women were to enter these mystical states, unmediated from external institutions, they might be ungovernable. We might be unstoppable. We might actually begin to become who we were meant to be. See, that talk was the cure for hunger in the Western woman, and I'll tell you what the cure is now. See, the cure for hunger in the Western woman is to get so full, so fat, that it begins to pour out of you, and that you indiscriminately, joyously feed others. That's what woman is here to do. We're here to feed. We're here to be the matriarch. We're here to sit at the table and ensure that everyone is fed what they need. There is this idea that you need to starve greed, hatred, and delusion. No, you need to feed the being and nourish them so that they aren't reaching out trying to consume for empty and meaningless things that cause tremendous amount of refuse in the world. We don't want to do that, right? I don't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. Why would I want to do that? If I actually feed my desire, my power, my eros, then all of a sudden I'm too big for that house. Then all of a sudden I'm not as attractive as a pet. Then what I need to do is self-determine. So many years ago, I was doing this work, and I was doing the cute version. I was doing the Doghouse version. I was doing, you're just going to have a happier marriage, and it's sort of like Goop, and it's cute, and like you can drink some green juice, and you're going to be a happy yoga person. And it was honest, but it wasn't wholly honest. Today, it's funny how duress gives you the courage in ways you couldn't imagine. Duress and the people who have stood behind you, fortifying you, giving you that courage to say what you always knew. I think we are the missing element in the world. That when we're looking around and we're so upset and so frustrated and hurting, our hearts are broken for what's happening in the world, for the greed, hatred, and delusion. We don't realize, oh wait, I'm the cure. I'm what's missing. I'm what's absent. Here's what's so funny. I don't think of myself at all in any way, even mildly, as a subversive person. Seems that this is a subversive message. Other than the fact that Reese doesn't like that I say inestimable, and you have to speak mathematically and you have to be able to estimate it. So I'll just say that women are incalculably powerful, and that's a controversial message. That's a message I had to fight to get into the book. Can you believe it? And then even then I could only get it on page 4 because I said I would lose my reader. I would lose my reader if I led with joy, if I led with the potential and the power and the resilience, joy of women. I met this woman, and she was a reverend. And somebody said, tell her about your work. And nobody wants to tell a reverend about your work when your work is clitoral stroking. You don't want to talk to, you really don't want to tell anybody. You really don't want to tell anybody. You want to say like, I don't know, I'm a spiritual person, but you know what? You don't want to say it's clitoral stroking, even though every time I ever have, that person ended up calling me into another area and asking me privately about my work. So I met this woman. She's a lovely woman. You saw her tonight reading. Told her about my work. She said, it sounds very interesting, lovely. Perhaps I'll try it with my partner. She has said the right things, the good things you're supposed to say to make a person feel good when they say their work is clitoral stroking, you know? It wasn't awkward. I would say it wasn't awkward. But then she said, can I sit with you at lunch? And yeah, we can sit together. And can we sit without other people? And I said, okay. Yeah, we can do that. You all saw her. She really looks like a nice person. She's from Ohio. And we sat and she said, Cha, I know what you're up to. And you are going to be in a lot of trouble. I want you to know I'm riding with you. I'm riding with you. And she said, she is a fierce, lifelong activist, if you get a chance to talk to her. She said, what you're building, I know about that from my culture. She meant Black culture, African American. You're out there pretty naked. You're going to need some help. Okay. We call it the Underground Railroad. And I said, I call it the high-speed train. And she said, I don't care what you call it, but we're going to build it together and we're going to go. She's one who never left. She's still here tonight. There was a woman who attempted to free people. She attempted to free, she said, my people, meaning her people, African Americans. And there's a quote attributed to her. I would have freed more people if only they would have known they were slaves. If I could say one thing after 30 years of this work, from going hardcore activist, feminist, all the way through all the way through now, is that the most challenging part is to have us look out the window at the mansion right there. No, the best of this is not good enough. We deserve that. That's ours. Not only is that our birthright, it's our obligation. Because as soon as we enter that place, we make an agreement. And the agreement is the agreement you would make if you entered a mansion. And that mansion were yours. If you entered a place and you accepted your nobility, you make the agreement of a noblesse oblige, the obligation of nobility. The obligation of nobility is to be that. It's to be that. We had one of our many scientists came through and he was talking about the fact that stress and sadness and sorrow and suffering, they're all contagious. If I walk into the room, pissed, sad, down, that's a contagion in the room. But one thing to remember is so is joy. Joy is a contagion. Each one of us can carry this in our bodies. This is how we can feed the world. This is really how, and ourselves first. So you have that obligation. In my mind, those are the vows I took. You may not have taken them, but that's what I took. We have this potential mandala. We have this world that we can build and design together. We have this way that we can liberate the imagination from where it's been. We can begin to design it from the ground of the feminine, the ground of eros, the ground of joy, the ground of reality, which is the interconnection and the interpenetration of all of us. We can do that. We can do that. We're doing that. One trick is just that everybody has to see it. Once you see it in that way that I saw the perfection, I couldn't unsee it. And it was very inconvenient because I had to change my entire life to live in accord with what I knew. I believe every single person in this room knows this. That's what I found after all these years. No matter how much we argue, we know it. How would I do this, you guys? Because we're going to have to do it together. Miss Millie and Tilly